For the fourth section of our review, we're going to take a look at stem change verbs in the present tense.
These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. One of these days these boots are gonna walk all over you.
Stem change verbs are often referred to as boot changers. That's because, like the spelling change verbs we looked at earlier, stem change verbs receive a change in the boot. Or, all subject pronouns receive a change, with the exception of nosotros and vosotros. You can see that idea reflected in this chart. All of the subject pronouns that will receive a stem change in the present tense have been written in green. And the two subject pronouns that do not receive a stem change, nosotros and vosotros, have been written in red. Again, we can think that green means go for a stem change and red means stop. And remember, we call these stem changing verbs boot verbs because if you were to draw a box or a line around all of the subject pronouns that do receive a stem change, you get a shape that resembles a boot. Here I've included a bit of information from your present tense notes about stem changing verbs. You will see that some verbs require a stem change in the present tense, but not all verbs. These stem changes will affect a variety of AR, ER, and IR verbs. And for a complete list of common stem change verbs, see the Prezi on my blog. And just in case you've forgotten, my blog is located at mercyspanish.blogspot.com. When you look at the Prezi or review your notes, you'll see that verbs that receive a stem change in the present tense will receive one of three possible stem changes. They will either change E to IE, E to I, or O to UE. And those stem changes mean that a specific vowel in the stem of the verb will change to either IE, I, or UE. So let's take a look at a verb that receives a stem change in the present tense. The verb repetir is a common stem change verb. It means to repeat. The first thing that we notice about this verb is that it is an IR verb. So, now that we know it is an IR verb, we know that the IR is the ending of repetir. The endings of verbs can tell us a lot about that verb. When conjugated, they tell us who did the action, and they frequently tell us when the action occurred. However, the ending is not involved in the stem change. It's not affected by it at all. The stem of the verb repetir is everything that comes before the ending. And here you can see that REPET is the stem of the verb repetir. And this is where our stem change will occur. As I said earlier, you need to learn which verbs receive a stem change and which stem change they will receive. However, there is one trick that you can use to help you figure out which vowel will receive the stem change. And to do that, you simply remember that the vowel closest to your ending will receive the change. So, if we look at the verb repetir, we can see that there are two vowels in the stem. So we know that we will choose the E, circled in red, because it is closest to the IR ending. So now that we've taken a look at the anatomy of the verb repetir, let's take a closer look at its conjugation and stem changes in the present tense. The verb repetir is classified as an E to I stem changer. So that's how we're going to conjugate it. The first thing we know about repetir is that it is an IR verb. Again, this does not affect the stem change, but it does tell us which endings we will use to conjugate the verb repetir. So keep that in mind as we prepare to conjugate. So the first thing we'll do when we look at repetir, we'll decide which vowel is going to change. We already did that earlier. We talked about how the second E in repetir is closer to the infinitive ending, so it will receive the stem change. So if we look at the yo form, we're going to write the stem of repetir. Since the yo form is within the boot, and since it's green, it tells us we are go for a stem change, we are going to change that second E to an I. So we are left with R-E-P-I-T. The same thing will happen in to form. Our stem will become R-E-P-I-T because we are changing this second E to an I. And we'll do that again in usted form and ustedes form. And of course, you'll notice that we did not do that in nosotros and vosotros forms because the verb repetir does not receive a stem change in those two forms. And we'll just write the stem of the verb there without making a change. So here you can see that I've completed writing all of the stems for each of the all of the stems for each subject pronoun. So we have the stem change in yo to usted and ustedes forms. Nosotros and vosotros did not receive a stem change. So the last thing that we have to do, we need to add our present tense endings for our IR verb. And those endings we should remember are o, es, e, imos, is, and en. So the verb repetir, when conjugated, becomes repito, repites, repite, repetimos, repetis, repiten. And again, if we draw a boot or a line around all of the subject pronouns that received a stem change, we are going to see our boot appear again. And that is how you conjugate a stem-changing verb in the present tense. Here you can see I've provided you with 3 sentences using stem-changing verbs in the present tense. So if we look at our first sentence, yo querer hablar. Our first verb is querer. And I'll go ahead and tell you that this is an E to IE stem change verb. And remember, you need to start looking at that list of common stem changing verbs and learning which verb receives which specific stem change. So, if we look at the verb querer, we can see that it is an ER verb and its stem is QUER. And in that stem, we only have one vowel, so we know that the E will receive the stem change. So the first thing we do is find our subject. We see that our subject is yo. If we think about the boot, we know that yo is written in green. Green means go. So querer will have a stem change in this sentence. So let's go ahead and write down our stem. Q, U. We'll change this E to IE. And don't forget your R. Okay, so we've made our stem change. The last thing we need to do here is add our present tense yo ending for our ER verb, and that is O. So this sentence now reads, Yo quiero hablar. I want to talk. Okay, go ahead and take a few seconds to conjugate the next verb, preferir, on your own. And I will tell you that this verb is also an E to IE stem change verb. Okay, so if we look at preferir, we see that it is an IR verb, and the stem is PREFER, prefer. We have two E's, but we're smart and we know that this E is closer to the IR ending, so that specific E will receive a stem change if necessary. So in order to find that out, we look at our subject. We see that our subject is ellas. We know that the third person plural form of ustedes, ellas, ellos receives a stem change. So in this sentence, preferir will in fact receive a stem change. So let's go ahead and write down our stem. P, R, E, F. We'll change this E to an IE. And then we have R. So then we have to think about our IR endings, and we have to choose the correct ending to agree with ellas. And fortunately, we're conjugating experts, so we know that the IR ending for ellas is EN. So your sentence here should read, ellas prefieren cantar. Okay, take a minute to look at the next verb, pedir. It is an E to I stem change verb. All right, if we look at the verb pedir, we see that it is an IR verb. First thing we do is look and see that our subject here is nosotras. So the first thing that should pop into your mind is that nosotras, that doesn't require a stem change. So we simply write down our stem, which is PED. It does not receive a stem change here because my subject is nosotras. So all we have to do now is think about our IR endings and write down I, M, O, S, because imos agrees with nosotras. And now we know that this sentence reads, nosotras pedimos agua. And that's it for your spelling change, your stem change present tense review. And again, if you have more questions or need more practice, either email me or check the blog for some activities at studyspanish.com.